A very warm welcome to everybody who's joined to Teenage Voices Unleashed, a public speaking journey for teens. This is an initiative from the communication platform 4VOICES and also the online parental site Mum Abroad. My name is Carrie Fraser and I'm one of the co-founders of both 4VOICES and Mum Abroad. And we're really delighted to have you here with us for the next 45 minutes or so, I think. So let's get cracking. And firstly, I'd like to introduce you to the two other, I should say, 4VOICES founders, Cormac Walsh and Gabriella Opaz, who will be joining me today on this webinar. Hello to you both.
Thank you, Carrie. Hello, everybody.
Hello, lovely to have you.
Well, before they introduce themselves properly to those of you watching, I just want to say that if you want to ask any questions, then by all means, do send them via the little chat box at the bottom of your screen, and we'll do our best to answer them at the end of this session. So firstly, Cormac, I'm going to turn to you, and perhaps we can start this webinar by you telling everyone a little bit about you.
Okay, my name is Cormac. I'm Irish. I've lived in Barcelona now for the last 17 years. I studied history and politics back when I was a young man. I then went traveling because I did the English qualification to become a teacher. I was in Costa Rica, I was in Venezuela, I did a year also in the States. Back to Dublin, I have been, in my 17 years in Barcelona, I have been an English language teacher, English language director, I've been an executive coach, I've done public speaking. I'm now the deputy director of a private school just in the city. And about 3 years ago, I got involved in this wonderful adventure that's been 4VOICES. So that's a little bit about me.
Very dull life then, Cormac, obviously. Isn't it time you just sat back a bit? Took it easy.
I think I'm one of those people that if I actually sat down, I might die. So I think I'm like, I have to keep moving forward.
Knowing you as I do, I think you're right. And Gabriella, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Gabriella. I am not Irish. I'm American and have lived on oh, so you wish, Cormac. And have lived on this side of the pond for the past 20 years. I moved to Barcelona actually after Madrid and lived in Madrid for 2 years, Barcelona for 8, and then here in Porto, Portugal for 10, almost 11 years. It's crazy. So my journey actually is that my understudies were in psychology. My master's was in alternative education and intercultural communication. And I've always had an incredible passion for storytelling and for communication. As a result, when we moved on this side of the pond, my husband was very involved in wine and I was very passionate about storytelling. So we created something called the European Wine Bloggers Conference. So what we did is we traveled around all of Europe in a different country every year, and we brought all sorts of wine-related people to one location. And we would teach them how to communicate online and how to communicate interculturally between one another. And we did that for about 8-9 years until we jumped ship and moved into tourism, so doing luxury tourism. So I co-founded a tourism company as well as a natural wine shop, which I run as well. And now we also, Cormac and I founded Educate to Communicate, which is a consultancy as well. And of course, we have 4VOICES, which is getting back to my core passion, which is helping teens and the unforgotten group that I'm madly passionate about.
Thank you so much, Gabriella. Also a very impressive journey. And I'd like to add to that, you're both TEDx speakers, of course, very established TEDx speakers, which is why we're here today, part of the reason. And Cormac, as you've said, 4VOICES was born from a conversation we both had a few years back when we realized there was a real need to engage teenagers in global conversations, especially in this fast-moving technical world. But we also recognize that many youngsters didn't really have the tools to do this. So hence the idea for 4VOICES. So can you expand a little bit on what our goal is and what we're trying to achieve?
Well, for me, a lot of young people don't have the opportunity to learn how to speak in public. I think it is true that a lot of schools now, particularly maybe the international schools, are trying to bring in opportunities for people to speak in public. But for me, that's a little bit like taking somebody to the edge of a pool and throwing them in and saying, this is an opportunity for you to swim. You know, it can be nerve-wracking, it can be terrifying, you know, it's such a difficult age anyway. And now you're taking me out of a class where I've done my best to hide for the year. And now suddenly you're telling me, out you go talk, and on top of that, it's worth a grade, and potentially we're filming you. And isn't this all terribly exciting? And for the poor kid, you know, it's really, really difficult. You're asking them to do things that adults that have been prepared to do it still find difficult to do. So I think I celebrate the fact that a lot of schools are giving those opportunities, but I really think it has to be brought back to being almost, I would love to see it be an academic subject. I would love teachers to have space. And I understand it's a crowded curriculum. It's hard to make opportunities for everything. But to make it an academic subject that people could learn how to put together a script, how to express your ideas, how to get up there and hold yourself physically. Because each time you do that, each time you focus in on the element, you lose some of the fear. And with the practice, you get better and better and better. I mean, every time that we've done this in 4VOICES, Gabriella can confirm this, the initial conversation is always, so we understood that we have to do a 5-minute speech without notes, but that's not true, right? We'll have our notes. And each time we've seen them get up there and in the last event in the Northern Irish Parliament and speak 5 minutes without notes at 16 years of age, something the majority of adults would run a mile from. And very quickly, in terms of what it does for the children, it gives them a wonderful sense of confidence, that ability to actually have your thoughts and to get up there and be able to express them is really life affirming. And a lot of these, well, you know, we'll touch on it later. A lot of these kids, I feel, are going through times where it's so easy to be connected, but it is as easy, if not more easy, to be disconnected. And when you're disconnected in such a connected universe, it's a frightening place.
There's such a paradox, isn't there, at the moment? We're going to touch on the many benefits of public speaking, because it's really not just about standing up there and delivering a speech. It brings so much more, doesn't it, Gabriella?
It does. And, you know, one of my core passions is emotional intelligence. And so for me, what I see in teens, and having, you know, a child myself, is that desire to share your thoughts and constantly feeling like this can be recorded, this can be, you know, shared everywhere, and or I'm going to get criticized, and or judged, and or whatever your and or is. You know, it's a hard time for you as a teen not only to know who you are, but stand firm in what you believe in, your values and your dreams and your goals. And I think what's nice about what we tried to create is a really safe space. And that's something we hear a lot from our teens is, you know, you guys create a space where I don't feel judged, I don't feel criticized. I feel as if I can actually voice whatever I'm passionate about, and know that your sole job is to help me share it confidently and clearly and concisely, so that the audience feels connected to it and doesn't feel disconnected. And I know I can carry this wherever I go. And if they can have that core confidence inside them, they can carry that anywhere. They can carry that to a university professor, to their next job interview, to a girl or guy that they want to ask out. It really doesn't matter. A serious conversation with a parent. I think those skills, that ability to be firm in what you believe in, is core to all of us, and something we all wish we learned quite young.
Sure, communication and connection is really what it's all about. And as Cormac, you touched on earlier, it's what we're missing, isn't it? And your own public speaking journey shows just what can be achieved when you overcome these fears. Can you just share a little bit about what happened to you?
I think every time I share this story, it's like this is where Gabriella comes in. Storytelling is a form of therapy. So years later, I'm still working on this. So the grammar school that I went to back in Ireland had three kind of groups. You had the seriously academic, you had the seriously sporty, and everybody else. We're glad you came, but we're not particularly interested in you. And I was very lucky that I fell into the academic end of things. And so at the end of my school year, I was asked to become the head boy, the senior prefect inside the school. And the football team, who I knew nothing about beyond the fact that they kicked the football, won this big competition. And I was asked to give the speech to welcome them home and congratulate them. That I was 17, I was in front of 1,000 people, everybody in the building, from the students to the cleaners to the teachers. There were some parents there, and I had to speak in public. I had the very smart idea of thinking, how am I going to do this as somebody that just about knows the difference between a football ball and a rugby ball? How am I going to get up here now and congratulate all of these people? And so I decided, well, maybe a smart idea would be for me to say something in Irish, because we're an Irish Catholic school, that might gain the audience round. That could be a good thing to do. And so I said in Irish, Níla Cabala Facalagam, which in Irish means I just have a few words to say. The word fuckle in Irish means word in English, but we all know what it sounds like. And I had 1,000 people down to the last person erupt laughing at me. And as I'm on my own in front of a microphone. So I did what a lot of people do in those scenarios. I put my head down, I mumbled through all the rest of my notes, ran back into the school essentially. And then this is kind of 1990s Ireland, and a history teacher that I had come running back into the school, gave me a big hug. That didn't happen at that time. And he said, "Congratulations, son, you've just done the hardest speech of your life." And from then, it just stayed with me. I thought there has to be a way that somebody in that scenario, it stayed with me for many years as something that anytime I thought about it, I just had a wobble and thought, okay, not going to think about that again. But it just stayed with me to think there must have been a way that somebody could have helped me to do something. And now that I'm in the situation that I can help somebody, what could I do so that nobody, okay, it's an extreme example, but what happened to me, depending on your personality, could easily happen to you in front of 25 people in a geography class where you've been made to do a presentation and nobody has helped you do it. So mine just happened to be, as in a lot of things in my life, on a bigger scale.
Yeah, I mean, one of our key messages we like to get across at 4VOICES is that public speaking is a skill, not a talent, although perhaps some people might be more inclined to be, natural public speakers than others. And that's something that you did. You went and learned the skills involved in public speaking. Can you explain a little bit about what they were?
So when I eventually started back in Toastmasters through a friend of mine here actually in Barcelona, who said, that's a great place to go to kind of meet people. You practice a bit your Spanish in public speaking. And so there, anybody that is interested just as a person, not just as a parent, Toastmasters have an incredible program. It's wonderfully designed out, and they take you through all the elements that you need to construct a speech, your opening, your closing, your main points, how you connect them, the transitions. It gives you the opportunity to practice many different types of speeches, a humorous speech, a serious speech, speeches for management. It also gives you feedback, because you give a speech and you get feedback directly from the audience and from somebody more experienced that can tell you, that was good, but try this, try that, try the other. One of the things I became fondest of doing in Toastmasters was evaluating, because my teacher head came on and I started to evaluate. But by evaluating, you were starting to learn yourself. And once I saw that these skills could be given to young people, then the next question was, how could you make that comparison for them? So just for any parent that's listening, one of the comparisons that really works for me, because you're dealing with an age group that are about to or have just learned to drive. And so that works really well for me. This seems like really an incredible thing that adults do. But if you break it down to the elements, what you have to learn, when you're originally learning it, it seems all very clunky, and I have to do a mirror and I have to do this. The more practiced you get, the more that becomes automatic. The more automatic it becomes a life skill. And at one stage in your life, you will drive between points without thinking of the mechanics that got you there. And our dream in 4VOICES that the people we train can, at a second's notice, get up and without focusing on the mechanics of what they're doing, be confident enough to do a wonderful job. And it's a great analogy. The kids understand it. Okay, sure. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, Gabriella, it is really about practice and repetition, really, isn't it? And that's something I guess that teenagers pick up a little more quickly than us oldies, right?
In what sense?
Well, I mean, that they pick up skills quicker.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. 100%. And actually, one of the reasons why the way Cormac and I met was actually through Toastmasters as well. And one of my main draws to Toastmaster was improvisation. And part of improvisation is you stand up on stage, you're given a theme, and off you go. And I absolutely fell in love. And part of that with teens is they do it naturally because they're on stage every minute of every day. They're constantly performing between this particular subculture to that culture, and that person. And how do I become a chameleon? How do I adapt? How do I make sure I'm connected? And we lose that skill a bit over time to constantly shift and adapt. And I think what's so lovely and absolutely lovely, why we so love working with this group, is because they're so easy to just shift within a moment's notice and say, okay, you need me to do X, boom, I'm going to do X, and they perfect it. And one of my favorite stories is actually our second edition in Barcelona that we held our event. I had the privilege to work with a young woman called Emma. And Emma came to me, wrote me an email saying, so I know we're 3 days away. I don't have a speech, but I've written it 60 times. Oh my God, 60 times. And she goes, yeah. So maybe you can help me. And then I'll memorize it by tomorrow on the bus ride to Madrid as I do my debate. And then I'll perform it for you on the bus as I go back. And then I'll get on stage the next day. And bless her heart, she did it beautifully. I mean, absolutely beautifully. It was her 61st draft. And I think, that just goes to show how quick they are to want to be heard and want to be seen and want to be loved. And as long as there's that space, that safe space to give them these skills, they will practice and do it without any hesitation whatsoever.
And also they will fly, won't they, Cormac? Because Emma is a great example of someone who's really got the public speaking bug and wants to take it to the next level.
Well, yeah, and to that point, we have seen some of our kids actually create incredible organizations or nonprofits based on their speech. Because what they found is they were able to hone in. We work a lot in finding your purpose. What are your values? What do you stand for? What do you want to change in this world? Because that has to be the core of your speech, because that's what you connect to. And that's true for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
So once they're able to find that, then they fly. And from that, once they overcome that fright, being on stage for those 5 minutes, they realize, well, I can go bigger. What else can I do? I mean, now that I did that, I can do so much more. And they have, and we've seen it.
Cormac, one of the questions that we're asking our youngsters now, or what we're looking at, is the core skills that they'll need moving forward. And no one really knows what the world is going to be like in 20 years' time, which is really not that far away. But I think what I have heard is that sort of basic generic skills such as resilience and adaptability are important, and they're going to be even more important as time goes by. And do you feel that working on public speaking skills help in that regard for teenagers?
I think this is where, very often when we're talking about public speaking, people have this image in their head of any of us that are on this call, or we've seen that just go in an auditorium and take control of an entire stage. And that has its place. But public speaking is so relevant in all of the conversations that we have. And so sometimes when we're talking about these, what's the 20 years from now work going to look like? We can all have our conclusions and our imaginations. What is true is that 20 years from now, these people, you're still going to have bosses, you're still going to have interpersonal relationships, you're still going to have co-workers, you're still going to have family relationships, siblings, all of those things are still going to exist. And public speaking in all its varieties will help you through all of that. And as you gain this skill and you gain this ability to be aware of yourself, be resilient, be able to be an effective communicator, each time you then do it, whether as Gabriella touched on, it's a difficult conversation with a parent, or it's approaching somebody that I like, or I'm trying to negotiate a salary, or I'm going to launch a new business, you become de facto more resilient because you're building up the skills on a constant basis. And going back to the car analogy, these skills are working for you without you tripping over the mechanics every time of how do I go about this. And the better you get at it, the more confident you become at it, the more it really does affect every part of your life. Actually, just before the call, Carrie and I were talking about how, in my experience as a teacher, the fascinating and the exciting and the thrilling thing about teaching public speaking is that you can make so much change so quickly, and that's for life.
Yep.
There's very few subjects that I can go in on a 6-week intensive course of 2 or 3 hours a week. I can get you to a point like Emma or like Albert or like Hope, any of the boys and girls that we work with, that skill, I know 25, 30 years from now, internally you can hit a button and those 6 weeks of training come back to you.
And I want to add to that one of the skills that we really focus on is your anxiety. Why? Because I think that's a tripwire, right? So one of the reasons why we don't speak in public, or we don't approach a potential job, or whatever your obstacle may be or your goal may be, is that anxiety. And we can provide, which we do, that those skills, those tools, and there are millions to choose from and can be specifically adapted to that kid that works for them. How do you get that self-awareness and that mindfulness to be able to sit with that anxiety and to embrace it and to say, I'm okay. It's good that's here. This is a survival skill. This is something my body's doing to help me. How can I gently shift that to excitement? And how can I embrace that and shift that to actually get to my goals versus tripping me and where I stay isolated and internal and not engaged? And that is a skill that additionally will carry you for everything.
Sure.
And I think,
as we know,
you
there's
know,
so much anxiety among teenagers, right, Cormac? Yeah, carry on.
yeah, no, well, I can answer the anxiety question. I think one of the things that Gabriella and I have noticed that are the teenagers are miles quicker at doing than maybe the adults that we work with, is that one of the key skills with speaking in public is learning how to read your audience. And that means you're feeling, like Gabriella just said, the energy you're throwing out, the energy you're getting back, you're feeling that and you're doing something with it. The teenagers are much, much faster at getting that concept. They're up there, they feel it, they get it, they can talk about it. And that then does help their anxiety, because we're dealing with a generation, few of us really, those of us maybe working in educations in the classroom, those of us who have teachers at home, we're still, I think, only starting to really see the hangover of COVID. These kids had their life stopped, particularly in Spain, and stopped in a lot of cases, depending on the school, meant stopped. You're in an apartment for 4 months, and that's it. You're in that apartment. And I think anxiety that they're dealing with, that then it's very easy to fall down the rabbit hole of a phone. It's very easy then to not have conversations with the people that you love. You become increasingly isolated when that happens. Then the anxiety just continues to go through the roof. You don't have anybody to try to help you share that. And that's a very lonely, lonely place. And a lot of our teens are there.
They are indeed. I want to go on to some of the questions that people have been sending in, but I just wanted to sort of sum up the importance, the benefits of public speaking. A lot of people, as we touched on at the beginning, feel that it's, a case of just almost like a hobby, just to master sort of skills, being able to speak confidently in public or in social situations. But what I think we also want to get across, the question to both of you now, is the importance of good public speaking skills gained during adolescence and how much that could influence future career opportunities.
Well, I think if I can use teaching as an analogy, we've all heard this quote that teaching is the most important profession because it's how all of the other professions come about. I would say that public speaking is the most important skill that we can give our young people, because that's how all of the other skills that they learn inside the education system can flourish. So that's the analogy.
And I agree with you 100%. And I would add to that if if you look at any soft skill list, whether it's Forbes, whether it's Price Waterhouse, whatever white paper you want to look at, the number one skill, or at least in the top 3, is communication. Always. And this is where, if you can read an audience, and the skills you learn how to read an audience will help you become a better team leader or a team member. It'll help you be able to do project management. It'll help you lead a group, because we focus really on positive intelligence and the ability to focus on being positive and encouraging, both of yourself and of those around you, to look at the audience as a friend, not a foe, that they are there to support you, although it feels like that they don't. All of these skills, what those do is they allow you to approach any situation and allow you to actually sit in it and say, I got this. I'm perfectly capable of communicating my needs, listening to their needs, sharing in a way that's going to engage them, and be open to any questions they may have, even if I don't know the answer. And I want to stress this, the Q&A part, which although we don't have in our events, do come after, just on a one-on-one basis. And so if you sit with someone and they ask you questions about your speech and you're freaking out and you're thinking, I don't know the answer to this, right? It's perfectly fine. None of us know all the answers. But for you to deal with that level of unknowingness and say, can I get back to you? Can I gather your information and email you and call you, or whatever the case may be? It allows you to, again, feel safe in yourself and say, I get to share what I can as I have it. And how do I research well to get to that point? What is good research? What is bad research? What is misinformation? what is good information. All of these things we cover to get them into a place where they feel they have integrity, they have pride, they feel they're being honest, they feel as if they're connecting and engaging. So again, these are all lifelong skills that, we all wish we had at an earlier age.
And so I would also add there quickly that a wonderful byproduct, which we also know this is almost a 4VOICES internal conversation that we need to focus on more, is that through teaching them skills about how to speak in public, they automatically start to become much, much better listeners. They're much more able to sit down and listen to what other people are saying to them. Again, it's something that we should actually be considering more. But when I think back of all of the people that have come through our competitions and events, you notice that they start to listen more to the other person and feel comfortable with listening and in those difficult conversations, and even becoming comfortable in silence. And that's not anything that we've specifically taught them yet, but it comes from them learning to speak in public. It's a fascinating job we have. We consider ourselves very, very lucky.
Yeah, indeed we are. And all these elements we cover, Gabriella, in our online course, which we launched very recently. Can you just briefly explain the setup of the course, the modules, what it involves?
Yeah, so the course is approximately 12 hours long. And what we have is around 30 videos available of various formats, some of Cormac and I speaking, some of key TEDx speakers, some of teens actually at our events providing information. And what we've done is we've guided teens exactly how we teach them through the course with engaging exercises, with very key learnings, with challenges to get them from one module to the next. And the goal is to start with a concept. What is this speech I want to create? And then we take you step by step to get you through the course to a point that you're creating that speech and you're videotaping that speech. And you can send it to us and we'll look at that speech and provide you coaching should you desire with us personally to get you to a place that you feel like, okay, I'm gaining the skills I need to be able to stand on stage. And I think what was so great for us in creating this course is we constantly, continuously modify this course. So it's a living course. This is not a stagnant course. We don't create it and just drop it. We keep on improving it every week to make sure that it's constantly up to date, that it's constantly providing information that, if there's new research coming out, we include it. We include new videos that we find will actually help them get a really interesting learning. So that's actually an incredible thing for us, that it's not static at all. It's very interactive in that way.
And Cormac, if for any parent that's watching this that might think that their teenager would benefit from the course, what kind of improvement do you feel they can see over that 12 hours from start to finish, if their starting point is pretty low and they haven't done public speaking before?
Well, you touched on it before, Kerry. Our core belief is that public speaking is a skill, not a talent. And anytime we've done trainings directly online or with the kids, that's what we tell Gabriella and I. That's one of our favorite phrases. If you learn nothing else from us, learn that public speaking is a skill, not a talent. Because if something is a skill, you can break it down into its elements. At the age you are as a teenager, you spend your life breaking maths down into its elements. You're learning how to cook, use technology, drive, they spend their lives breaking things down and then building it back up again. So the first thing that I would like to see is that they get that into their head. Okay, I don't need to be afraid of this. I don't need to feel that this is something I'm either born with or I'm not, because that's not the case. I can now work my way through this course and find the things that I'm actually naturally good at. So I'm good at research. I'm good at putting together a structure. I find it easy to come up with wonderful thoughts. Where I'm terrified is how I get up there, what I do with my hands, how I use my voice. And so that they identify the elements that they're naturally good at, and there will always be some, and they can then focus on the elements that they really feel that they're going to struggle with. And then they can get both up to the level of, well, I'm confident here because I'm good at this. And now I'm confident here because I've learned it and I've worked on it. And that at the end that they can find themselves in any scenario, particularly, as I said, it's very, very hard to suddenly be told, this is a geography, history project. You're going to have to do it, particularly if you're working in a team, and you're going to have to get up there, and it counts for a certain percentage of your marks, and good luck with everything. Thanks.
quickly that it's also a lifelong skill. And the reason why I add that is, it is our personal belief that every skill isn't a one-off skill, that you learn it and you're done. Our core belief is that they continuously work these skills for the rest of their lives. You can continuously improve. Cormac and I, and Carrie as well, we're all continuously improving our skill sets and giving each other feedback in different ways that, we could move our body differently or engage the audience differently. This isn't as if you're an expert and you're done. This is a skill set that you keep on working and can change your relationships dramatically as a result of that mindset, because it has to be flexible and adaptive. And it has to make room for saying, okay, if I'm sitting with someone from India, maybe I have to be more aware of my body language and use it in a different way that I've never thought about before. That's really interesting. So, how do I learn more about that? And if you can keep that adaptive mindset, then it makes life a lot less stressful, less controlling, and you're able to kind of sway in the wind and not feel rigid and brick. So it's a beautiful thing to gain.
And then the exciting comes because you've given them all of these skills. I'm thinking of the events and competitions. You've worked all of through with them, and then you can sit back and actually listen to what they're saying. And this is when the gold comes, because I mean, the level of stuff that they come up with. I mean, in the first edition, several of the people on this call, Carrie, I'm going to include you in this, were crying because it was the first time you had heard the speeches. The level of what they talk about. And the next event that we have is about the digital jungle, and I am really excited to hear what they're going to come up with, because I feel that's a learning opportunity for me, who feels like if I send an email, I could get a round of applause, to think of but to just be able to sit back and go, wow, that's their perspective, that's their vision, and that we were able to help them get up there and share that. That means it's a learning experience for all of us.
And I think in its simplest form, what I can say about public speaking is that it gives you huge amounts of self-confidence, and with that you feel empowered, and once you feel empowered, then the world really is at your fingertips, and what you can achieve is endless, and that's really what we want to be able to instill in our youngsters. And this is what we are doing through our coaching, through our events, through our courses, and hopefully those of you out there with teenagers will listen to this and hopefully instill some of that excitement in them. That's what we want, because they are our next generation. We're going to pass on the world to them, so that we want them to move forward with that feeling of empowerment and confidence. We're going to move on to some of the questions now that have been sent to us from our attendees, and actually this touches on your answer, Cormac, about public speaking being a learned skill, not a talent. And someone has asked if you have to be naturally extroverted to be a good public speaker.
No, absolutely not. I am hugely introverted. I and always have been, and come from an introverted family, and grew up pretty much with my head stuck inside any book I could get my hands on. And I would still consider myself naturally introverted. And if I had to walk into rooms where my job is to network and do stuff, unless I have a specific purpose that I'm going in there and we're going to fundraise and we're going to do this, just going in and casually being there, I'd rather be anywhere else on the planet. But equally, you could throw me on a stage with very little notice in front of 1,000 people. And because I have this skill and I know how to connect with the audience and I can read the audience and see what's happening. And I would also argue that introverts can sometimes be better public speakers, because you spend your life reading audiences. You walk into a room and you go, okay, what's the temperature here? What's happening? Okay. That's exactly the same skill that you need when you decide, how am I going to win over these 1,000 people who are sitting in the dark looking at me right now? And you can lock into that. So, I often get into this, is it extroverted, introverted, better public speakers? You could debate that for years, but that introverted people can't be wonderful public speakers, I don't agree with that.
Yeah, because Gabriella, I just ask, some people have this fear, don't they, of being the center of attention. How much would that hold you back?
So it's normal, because I think all of us, I really don't care who you are, all of us to some level have this concern. Cormac and I have been on stage for ages, and both of us still get the butterflies in our stomach. You ask great actors how they feel before they get on film or on stage in Broadway, and many of them will say, I still feel nauseous. I still feel uncomfortable. And that's part of embracing that anxiety. And, I want to add to the previous question, which actually ties into this, about those who have some mental or emotional challenges, teens who are really struggling with mental and emotional challenges, and whether that's ADHD or whatever issue they may hurdle or challenge they may be dealing with. I would like to say that some of them are some of our best speakers by far, because they tend to be really connected to how they feel and what they're thinking and what they don't know how to express. They use our skills to finally get that out. And they're so focused on wanting to get out that message, that story, that feeling, that they'll go over hurdles to get there. And so if you're a parent that says, my child is struggling with this or that, please bring them to us. We would love to have them, because they tend to be some of our best students, because they know what it's like to keep things trapped inside and want nothing more than to get it out. So even with that anxiety, it does not hold anyone back, really, with enough support and nurturing.
It is all about creating a safe space, isn't it? Because having worked in broadcasting, I know that putting a microphone in front of people and making them feel at ease, they can come out with the most incredibly private but inspirational thoughts. And I think that's what we try to do, isn't it, Cormac? Is tell people that they are in a safe space, that people want to listen to them, and they can share their thoughts with no judgment.
I think that's the key to the success that we've had, is that's our primary goal always, is to make sure that from the very, very first session that we have in Gabriella, and we always in those sessions have little breakout rooms where the teenagers get a chance to be on their own and talk to each other and then come back to us and then go back into the breakout rooms. If you're not able to create a safe space, then they're not going to be able to trust you. If they can't trust you, then yes, intellectually they can read all the material, they can understand what I'm telling you, but they're not going to be able to believe that they can get up and do it. So it all has to come back to them feeling, I trust the two people that are leading this training session. I trust the other people that I'm with, which is why we always make sure that the first session they get to know each other well. And now we're all on a journey. Even when we were doing, as some of you who would have visited the website now know, now we're in a combination of competitions and events. But even when we were doing the competitions, we always made it clear from the first session, you've already won. You're here. When you're on the day and you're up there, there may be an official first, second, and third. But when somebody is up there, you need to be rooting for that person and vice versa. And you'll always see that in all of the events that we've done, when they're up there, you'll see that their reference point always goes back to the team. And that's lovely. And one of the biggest memories I have of all of our years together doing this was when, after the end of the first edition, I think Lorenzo came to me and said, Cormac, we're all thinking of going out for lunch together. Is that okay? And I ran to try to find Gabriella. They're going out for lunch. Look, but that just felt like the culmination of them all coming together and having this wonderful trust in each other. And that's what made them powerful speakers at the event.
And I also want to add to that very quickly that, one of the things you'll see if you see the recordings from our other events, whether that's YouTube videos or the entire event itself on our website, is that you'll see the kids stalling. They'll forget what they're saying in their speech. And that's happened in every edition, right? They'll pause and lose their track. And the greatest skill that they're gaining, I honestly believe this, one of the greatest skills they're gaining is to stop and to breathe and then to keep going. Never, ever have we had anyone walk off that stage, ever. They have always stopped and maybe freaked out for a minute, maybe apologized, but they kept going. And that for us as parents, for us as teachers, for us as consultants, all the above, is the greatest skill you can have, because it means you're not giving up on yourself. And if they can walk away saying, I have not given up on myself and I finished what I started, sky's the limit.
I'm not giving up on myself, and it's in my hands and my power to turn it around. That's the exciting part. Yeah.
Now, Cormac, you touched on a moment from one of the past 4VOICES events. We're in our third year in Barcelona. We have had an event in Belfast this year and another event in Belfast coming up later this year as well. Gabriella, what is your standout moment, asks Julia, from your past 4VOICES events, would you say?
Standout event with one of the students?
Standout moment.
You know, one of my standout moments is one of the speakers contacted me privately and said, I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't know why I'm here. And we were weeks away from her getting on stage. And of course, I slightly freaked out for a moment, being like, oh God, what are we gonna do? And then together, I got on a call with her. She texted me via WhatsApp, and I got on a call with her. And for 2 hours, we just talked. We just had the most casual conversation on the planet about, okay, well, you know, what is important to you? What do you really want to say? What do you wish people hear? And it just slowly guided her to the point that by the end, she felt, okay, I think I got it. I think I'm clear. I think I really know what I want to say. And for all of us, it's a journey. All of us struggle to find out what that core message is and what we stand for and what we want to change on the planet. And for her, weeks, literally 2 weeks before she stood on stage, to have that conversation, to be able to write a speech based on that conversation, edit it ever so slightly because she was in flow. She knew exactly what she wanted to say, and boom, she did a brilliant job. Brilliant job. And I think for me, that's a standout moment, is that you could be days away and you could still take all those skills that we provided you, that you've embodied, and say, okay, now it's time to be vulnerable. Because if there's one thing that we really emphasize over and over again, is you can't tell a story about someone else. It's got to be about you. You have to put your own vulnerability in there. You have to put you in that story, because that's why the audience is there. That's why they care. They want to understand what you truly care about and why you're willing to stake your life on it by being on this stage. And they do it, even if it's one sentence that they get in there, because that's all they can handle. Perfect. We don't care. But as long as you're taking that step to open the door to your heart just slightly, we feel like we've succeeded.
Yeah, of course. And exposing one's vulnerability is how we all connect, right, Cormac?
Yeah, and I think, when I think of my two standout moments, and one of them is about connection, if you're wondering, why is this man not answering my question? One is Lorenzo, when he came running over going, can we go for lunch together? And then the other one was when at one of the events, a really, really bubbly, vibrant mum came over and said, when I was told my daughter had applied for this, I didn't believe it. I thought they got the wrong name. Under no circumstances did I imagine this could happen. This is somebody who we almost have to pull conversation out of, because she chose to do this and went through the training and started to talk about things she was passionate about. She was at the dinner table telling us all of these things that she was thinking she could put in her speech. That then led to other conversations that we hadn't had in ages. And so just by virtue of her being in your program and being excited, it changed the day-to-day dynamics inside our relationship with our daughter. And I, again, like I said, when I go back to the answer I gave earlier about how they become much better listeners, and that's a byproduct. I was sitting thinking, it's incredible to imagine that our goal to teach somebody to talk in public and give a speech could have that kind of effect inside a house, inside the life of a family and those family members, just because that person was excited about everything she wanted to put in her speech. And so that kind of was one of those moments where you rock back on your feet and go, okay, wow, didn't see that coming. That's incredible. So that stuck with me. And she was so proud of her daughter for the speech, but also so happy about this kind of opening of the communication channels. That was one of my proudest moments.
Yeah, I mean, it's a ripple effect, isn't
that
it?
quickly is that we've seen, depending on the theme, to be clear, but we've seen in our events a stronger relationship between the parent and child, because often children will stand on stage and talk about their relationship with their parent.
Yeah.
Become very personal about that relationship and some of the struggles you've gone through, but then how you've gotten through the other side. And I think those are incredible learning moments, not just for them, but for us. And they're quite beautiful. And we've seen parents break down in tears saying, I finally am plugged in. I'm plugged in. And that's what we all want.
Thank you both for sharing those memories. We've got one final question, which is for both of you. What would you say to any teenager watching or whose parent might approach them after this webinar, who feels intimidated by public speaking but just wants to make that first step?
Sorry, Gabriella, I thought you were about to start.
No, go ahead.
I would say to that person that life is full of first steps. You know, physically, the first step you take when you're younger, everything you do, really, anytime you turn around to a new skill, a new relationship, a new opportunity, a new experience, they're all first steps. And, you know, so many of us, I think, and this has been one of the joys for me actually going through this process, because you see how vibrant, how quick people make changes in your life, and you think, I can make changes in my life too. You know, how many people get to the end of their life and look back and think, if I'd taken the first step there, or the first step here, or the first step in other places. So I would say all you can lose in that scenario is fear. And losing fear is a wonderful, wonderful thing. So take that step. Is it going to be easy? Potentially not. Are you going to enjoy every minute of it? Probably not. Are you going to come out the other end of it changed, empowered, with a skill set that you can fall back on at any moment in time, and that fear has converted to what Gabriella has said, butterfly excitement, that I can't wait to get up there and see how it goes? Then, you know, take the step, lose the fear. That would be my answer.
And on top of it, you know, what Cormac said is so spot on. You know, everything is about first steps, but you're doing a first step with people who genuinely care about you and who've genuinely been there and are willing to do whatever it takes to get you to a place where you feel confident. And so if you're going to take that step, at least do it with people who genuinely will take it with you every step of the way. And that's what we take really great pride in 4VOICES, is ensuring that you feel 100% supported from beginning until end and onward.
Thanks to you both. Our time is up, sadly. I know we could carry on probably for another hour, so there's so much to talk about. But thank you for your expertise, for your time, for your feedback, and anyone watching that wants to know more about us or wants more information on our coaching or on our online course, the best place to go is our website, which is 4-voices.com. There's also a link in this chat to the online course, which currently has a discount, a 25% discount until the end of this month. But any questions, please email us as well, info@4-voices.com. But from me and from Cormac and from Gabriella, we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much, Kerry. Thanks, everybody.